Okay, on this episode of If You Want It, long awaited for Tim. He's been kind of whining for this episode for a year or so since we started doing this. And none of us are smart enough to talk about some of what he wants to talk about. Now, I can talk Star Wars all day. I'm just throwing that out there. But we're going to do a new episode of Nerd Stuff. We should probably just add Alan to the Nerd Stuff chat and get that going again.
That's a good chat.
But we are going to talk through superhero movies, comics, all things.
We can talk it all.
We can talk it all. So we're going to talk it all. So I'm going to let you guys start where you want to start.
Okay.
Or do you want me to just throw out a subject and you guys get going on it?
Well, I mean, we were talking about we were both big Ninja Turtles fans.
Yeah, I was going to say the last.
But I guess to clear up the record, I didn't beg for this. I didn't know who you were. I'm glad you're here.
No, he didn't beg.
He's like, man, there's a guy I wanted you to sit down with.
So he told me this. Makes me think of like the whole Ant-Man thing. I know a guy.
That's what he kept doing. Yeah. Tim, I got a guy I want you to sit down with.
Well, he's always wanting me to talk about it. I'm like, I just don't know if I can fill it because I just know bits and pieces.
I'm just so limited on the stuff I can talk with him about because he wants to talk about it, but there's a ton of stuff like I don't want to ruin for him. And he's like, well, I don't care, but
I don't care.
Like, man, if I ruin it,
if I haven't watched anything in 7 years or whatever it's been, then
at this point, they just kind of your fault. Like that's a good point.
Chances are it probably got ruined for you on social media.
Yeah, I'm getting behind on even Star Wars. Like I got to finish the freaking Acolyte, and then I need to get through the
Skeleton Crew.
See, I haven't finished Skeleton Crew.
And then I'm excited for Andor too. So
I haven't watched the first Andor, which is weird because I love Rogue One.
Andor's great. I thought
the first times of watching Rogue One and Andor was kind of boring to me. And I suppose Andor, it picked up when he went to prison and met Andy Serkis.
Mm-hmm. What does?
Andor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember him going to Serkis. He went to prison?
Yeah, he went to prison, and they were like, it was like a factory kind of setting. And
oh, yeah. I do remember that now. I was thinking at the beginning whenever he kills the guy and the cops can't find him or whatever.
Yeah, there was that. And then he meets Ben Grimm. Well, the guy that's going to be playing Ben Grimm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a while since that came out. It was a long time between seasons, I feel like, for Andor. It's almost 2 years.
How long before Rogue One does Andor take place?
Shortly. I mean, not.
Is it like kind of like leading up to it?
Like 5 years?
5 years or so, something like that. And they say like the second season is just going to go lead right into it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I heard they weren't doing many seasons of it. Like this is probably the last one.
Yeah, I think what's his name? Diego Luna. I think he said this is going to be the last time he ever plays that.
Well, you're kind of limited on time.
Yeah.
How much you can do. Well, you've already told his ending.
That's the neat thing about what they're doing with Star Wars. Like now that they've mapped out, George Lucas's plan for the 3 trilogies, they kind of just go into this place, kind of fill that up. Mm-hmm. This place, fill that up.
Yeah. So there's a few things with it that I randomly feel like they kind of alter some of your perception of what was available to you in the movies a little more than I would like them to.
Okay.
Like, I liked Obi-Wan a lot, but there's some things that went on in there that I really am not the biggest fan of the idea that they fought one more time between when he left it with Mustafar and then, because in episode 4, it's like they haven't run into each other. They don't even know if he's still alive for like, it makes you feel like it's the 20, 25 years in between. But then now they saw each other 10 years before that.
Then. And then also where Obi-Wan meets the young Leia.
Right.
Like, Leia kind of talks about him fondly, about how, you fought with my father in the Clone Wars and whatnot. But now we're seeing, you actually knew me when I was like 10 years old.
That didn't bother me too much, just because the hologram is pretty. How do I want to say this? The hologram's a little bit vague enough
Yeah.
that it didn't bother me so much that he had a small relationship with her before, like. And it also, to me, that one actually does kind of tie it together as to why she's just like, hey, it makes sense to ask this guy for help.
Which, you helped me before.
I just
Not
really
only
like
have
the
you helped my
idea of
dad.
Anakin and Obi-Wan not seeing each other from the time that he turned him, basically turned to Darth Vader to.
What I did love about that.
Now
fight,
I loved
though,
the fight. I
Yes,
loved everything
the
that
fight
was the
was
content. By all means, that's one little thing I didn't like, and like people getting pissy during the acolyte about. Now I will say this: I was a little bit bummed because whenever I went into the acolyte, I thought it was like 1,000-ish years before episode 1, and then you find out
Yeah.
it's 100-ish years. But when initially watching it, when I thought it was 1,000 years before, then realizing it was 100 years, I thought it was cool because the way that they kind of visually present everything to you is like almost feels not that far away from our current time. Does that, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like maybe it's like just the way they dress is very like you could see us migrating to there. The space travel's not quite as impressive as it
Okay.
gets later, and then like even like their Jedi skills are closer to like martial arts
Yeah.
than they are kind of what they are in regular Star Wars. I thought that was cool, and then there was like, well, it's only 100 years before, and I'm like, oh, that kind of
I mean, it was a way for them to
not as cool.
insert Yoda in
It changed
there.
a lot.
Yeah. Well, and then people are pissy because I can't ever remember how to pronounce his name. Mindu, but Kiadi.
Oh yeah.
People
where
are
he
really
was
pissed off about
the
that.
dude with the
Cone head, yeah.
7 head. Yeah, cone head.
Yeah. They're all mad because he's like, well, they clearly had to know the Sith were around because he was around 100 years before. And I was like, yeah. And I
And
haven't
then he
finished it,
freaks
so I
out
don't
in
know.
episode 1. It's like, oh my god, the Sith are around.
They've been extinct for millennia. He's the one that it directly says
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that pissed everybody off, which I kind of get, but at the same time, I was like, I mean, I haven't seen the ending yet, so I don't know if they really think it's Sith or not, I guess. If they do it right, it could still make sense.
Well, going back to that
You've
battle
seen it
with
all, haven't you?
I've seen the whole season because
Well, they're not
I heard
doing anymore.
I could see the hate and that it was getting kind of rough reviews, but like I'll see it through. It's a Star Wars thing. Like I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. Like I thought all the fighting was great. My major issue with it was there was very little like character development. And I think I mentioned it on here. Like Daphne Keen's characters in it, and I mean I guess spoilers are out the window. It's your fault, bud. But like she dies at a certain point, and it feels like it's supposed to be this big moment, and you're supposed to have an emotional impact to it.
Which one's
Others-
Daphne King?
She was like the little girl in Logan.
Yeah,
She's like
played
X-23.
And she
Maybe
had this makeup on her where she was in Acolyte. She had, I can't remember.
Yeah, she's got like a
some
few horns
spottedness
and stuff,
yeah.
and it's just like But yeah, her character dies, and it feels like it's supposed to be like this really charging moment, but it's like I didn't really feel anything because she just didn't really like have the screen time, and you could tell she was supposed to be an important character, and there was just no like connection. And I felt
I
like
don't
they
even
did
know
that a
if I've
few
seen
times
her
throughout
yet.
the show.
Is she the? Who is she?
She's
I don't
mean-
even know if I've seen her.
I forget what her name is in this show, but she's got a
That's
fair amount
even,
of screen
yeah, don't
time.
even know, didn't even catch the name.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, she's got a fair amount of screen time. There was just like no development. It felt like
Yeah.
everything happened so fast. It's
Fast.
like, oh, here's this character, get a connection, and now she's gone, and we expect you to.
To care that she died.
Yeah, and same thing. Like, I heard a lot of hype about there being like this Wookiee Jedi, like very fucking little screen time, and they kill him off screen.
Oh,
Like-
Yeah.
Black Santa or something like that.
No, it was. I'm familiar with
Oh,
that
Priest
one.
on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking in
He's
Book of Boba Fett.
He's
where
Book of
they-
Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
But there was,
yeah, like you see very little screen time of him like doing any sort of action, and even then it's just like a minute or two, but then they kill him off screen. Like it's
Yeah.
almost a total waste of that.
Yeah.
I think they dropped the ball on a lot of things with that show.
I also remember like initially you think that they almost Game of Thrones it to me, where like they introduce all these characters like these are all going to be important, and then in the third episode they're like all dead. It's like, huh?
yeah.
Where's this going to go in 8 episodes? Like just a bunch of the other Jedi that are helping him go get the twin back or whatever, and you're like, okay, these are going to be important through the whole thing. And they get to that one
Yeah.
forest fight where the twins swap, and this is all the farther I've been. I've seen where the twins switch, but like they're all dead by the end of that one battle. It's like, I just remember
There
thinking,
was-
like, wow.
I remember there was like a group of Jedi that saved the twins from what the Sith witches or something like that. Save them from some kind of
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
And then the one twin wanted to be a Jedi. I don't think the other one did.
Yep.
And then the one that didn't, and I think she might have been pissed that they took them from the place, and so went out and was trying to kill all the Jedi, that group of Jedi, which that Wookiee Jedi was one of them. Carrie Ann Moss from The Matrix was one. And
Yep. See, and you thought she was going to be more important. She dies like in the first episode or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
And you only see her through flashbacks.
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess the only other thing that kind of irritated me about that, and I do sound like I'm really ragging on it, overall, like it was an okay show. Probably should have gotten a second season just to see where they were going to take it, but it didn't. There's this whole like scene where she bleeds the kyber crystal and makes it red. But like it happens totally different than what they've already laid out with in text, and also the Jedi Survivor PlayStation game, which I know, or video game. I think it's on multiple platforms. But like, there's a whole cutscene where a character bleeds a kyber crystal, and it's totally different. It's like it's supposed to be like this really like they're raging really hard, almost like pouring their emotions into it. And in the Acolyte, it happens in like over a few seconds.
Yeah.
Like in that cutscene, it's just it's kind of like a real slower transition. It's just like he's almost like hulking out of it. Like the emotions just keep getting higher and higher and higher, and like it gradually happens over the course of a few minutes. And it was just, I don't know. After seeing that and then seeing it in the show, it's like you guys could have like made that a little better too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't got that far. That's where I plan on picking back up, but I haven't had time.
I didn't think it was as bad as people let on, and I hope some of those characters, they put them in different things. Like there was that one Jedi, forget his name now, but he was an Asian dude. And
Yeah, he was from like Squid
badass.
Game, and he learned English.
That's right, he was from Squid
He learned
Games.
English specifically for the Acolyte, is what I was hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it was an okay show too. It got a lot of unfair hate for ridiculous reasons. I know a lot of it was like racially charged and stuff. I thought the characters were all good. I wish there was better character development for some of the characters they expected us to have feelings for. And I just think they could have been a little bit more. They could have looked at the resources they had and kind of the material they've already laid out and like, okay, well, this is how we know this probably should happen. Let's like do that a little better. And maybe show a few more scenes of our Wookiee fighting.
Yeah. No, I wanted to touch back to that battle between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader.
yeah.
This is in
loved-
Kenobi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in
Battle?
Kenobi. What I loved about that was I've always had this disconnect in my brain between Anakin and Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know that that's supposed to be him.
Right.
And then, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, he shows, they bring him up in the whole suit and everything. But there's always been that disconnect. And I've always wanted to see just them to crack his helmet a little bit and everything. And
Yeah.
sure as shit, they did that in there.
Yeah.
And, I think Hayden Christensen, he actually suited up and
dude.
was fighting in there and everything. And
Yeah.
so So I'm glad that they did that, where that you actually see Anakin in there. And then another thing I really enjoyed about it was like at the end of Revenge of the Sith, when they're talking about how we're gonna split up the twins and Yoda, you're gonna go to Dagobah and all this.
Yeah.
And then Yoda says to Obi-Wan, he says, "Hey, I've been keeping in contact with your old master," and he's like, "Oh,
Yep.
Qui-Gon." And so since then, I was like, oh my God, is this how Obi-Wan learns to be a Force ghost? And so I really want to see Qui-Gon show up as a Force ghost. And they did that at the end of Obi-Wan, where they had Liam Neeson come back and everything.
Show it to him, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could communicate with him. So, like I said, my only dog on that show is I don't like that they actually faced off. Now, I was super excited for most of the show whenever they're just barely missing each other. Now, I thought that was fucking awesome. Like, they're like when he's in the street just killing people in front of him, trying to draw him out and stuff. And like, I kind of
drags the lightsaber across and makes the flames.
It throws kids into
Yes.
the. Yeah, I had kind of hoped that they would always keep it like that, where they don't really ever.
See, and that would have been a good way to do that.
It would have been interesting,
Yeah.
I think, but
So
everybody want to watch them fight again.
I get,
and it was awesome. I'm not saying that it was not awesome. I
Right.
just thought it would have made the transition from 3 to 4 better if they had never.
That doesn't bug me as much. I know, like when you break it down, like it's only 10 years now. Like, okay, that doesn't seem like a ton of time for all that to happen. But that didn't bother me a ton. I think I've said it on here a few times. Anytime we've talked about Star Wars, like the Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader kind of arc of the original trilogies, like that. To me, Star Wars was always the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin. So like anytime I could get any content about that, I'm all over it. Like in the Kenobi show, seeing Obi-Wan realize like Anakin's still alive, like because that's never really defined in Revenge of the Sith. Like he just kind of leaves him there.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of lore where like it's more detail. Like in the lore of it, that bank they're fighting on is actually more of like a cliff. And so like, it makes sense like why he had to get out of there. So this whole time he just assumed like Anakin was dead, and to find out he was actually alive and he's Darth Vader, like seeing him realize that was great, but also just the end fight and the whole fight itself's awesome. But like when they're interacting, when you see Hayden through the cracked mask, which is one of my favorite scenes. The lighting was great. To see him and kind of have to confront that again, and it ends up almost sort of giving him closure to the whole situation by the end of that interaction.
Yeah,
I love that scene. The lighting for that was all because of their lightsabers.
Oh yeah,
Like it was all like
In the
accidental
studio,
lighting, because like now they're actually able to use some sort of lightsabers, and not like the theater film they had on the rods back in the day. But like that lighting kept bouncing off of his mask, and they found a way to use it for the red and blue like effects.
Yeah,
It was pretty badass.
I read that when George Lucas, when he first sat down to write Star Wars, he started with that scene on Mustafar where, Obi-Wan and Anakin and, you were my brother and all that. That's where George Lucas started with, and he went from there.
yeah.
Yeah, it's clear like he had a plan to go back and tell a whole other story.
Yeah,
There's a lot of stuff of like he's had that in his mind for decades.
long time. Yeah,
Yeah.
he talks about that. There was there used to be on the like 1997-ish VHS release. They had interviews with George that Leonard Maltin did, like before you got to watch the movie, before each episode, and like I remember him talking in there about that, like because they kind of asked him like, are you getting ready to do the backstory, and he's like, yeah, I mean, after we wrote it, I always had this backstory in the back of my mind, like so it made sense why Obi-Wan's involved in the first place and just all that stuff. So he had talked about it in there. Now I have throughout time heard a lot of different sort of things, and some of even George Lucas's comments on it are a little bit contradicting. Like I remember in that specific thing, he had talked about like how he had written the whole thing and decided he couldn't put the whole original trilogy in one movie; it was too much. So then he backed off and said, "We'll just do like the first act, which is Star Wars, A New Hope now." And then maybe later on we would write the other ones. But I've also read and seen interviews where they talked about like after Star Wars was such a huge hit, there is a book. Oh crap! I'm gonna not remember the title of it. That takes place between.
Oh, Splinter in the Mind's Eye.
Yes.
Yes.
That was originally the script for Empire Strikes Back. So it drives me nuts that he says I wrote all 3 of them and then just decided to make a movie out of the first act, but then also hired somebody else to write Star Wars 2.
Okay, this is what I heard on Splinter of the Mind's Eye. So first off, before they actually released the movie, he went to science fiction author Alan Dean Foster, which is very close to my own name. He went to him and he was like, "Here's the script. I want you to put this in a novelization form."
Yep.
And then, so George, I heard that he had both ideas for Empire Strikes Back and Splinter in the Mind's Eye, but he was like, well, if Star Wars doesn't take off like it does, if I don't have enough budget to make Empire Strikes Back,
Yeah.
I want to make Splinter in the Mind's
Mind's
Eye.
Eye.
And he
Okay.
went to Alan Dean Foster to come up with the story for that. And at that time, Harrison Ford had not signed on yet. So they're like, well, also let's do this in, where we don't have Han Solo in there, and therefore Chewbacca's not in there.
Mhm.
So it's just Leia and Luke.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
they really, and that, I think that's where they first came up with the ideas for the Kyber crystal. There was some roots of that in there.
There, yep. Okay, that makes sense. See, I could never find that bridge that you just filled in the gaps there on. So, so back up to Obi-Wan. I didn't mean to run down that path 100%, but back up to Obi-Wan. I will tell you this, and I have been asking for this forever, and I think what Obi-Wan really made me want at the end of it is like, why are we dicking around with so many different like little stories that we can do when I want a fucking Darth Vader series that is literally from Revenge of the Sith to Rogue One.
Yeah,
Like,
there's a
who the
lot of
hell
lore
would
on the
wanna-
shit.
Yes.
Yes.
A
I
ton
know.
of lore on the shit he's been doing that entire time.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter who your actor is because he's in a suit.
Right.
Like, there's so much shit you can do, and it's not going to interfere. Like, the only thing it could potentially interfere with, and it wouldn't bother me if they included it or not, but like the Jedi Unleashed video games with the
Oh, that Star Killer character.
Star Killer guy,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
But wouldn't even. Who cares?
There's
I mean,
some Marvel's done some comics of and like particularly takes off where he learns that he has a son, at least Luke,
Yeah.
and so he's mad about people who've kept that from him.
Yeah.
So he's going around and just on a freaking rage, and he meets up with the character that Keira Knightley played, who was the switcheroo for Batman.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Sabe or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, meets up with her, and then
Produces another child.
hey,
So one of
I'd
my
produce a child with Keira Knightley.
fair. One of my complaints, like few complaints about Obi-Wan, was the inclusion of like the Inquisitors. Like they kept that whole
Yeah.
storyline with like Reva. I didn't care for that. That wasn't the show for it. That would be a perfect show to introduce her and all the Inquisitors in a Darth Vader show. Like perfect time to give them their own story arcs.
Yeah.
A show called Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like I don't really care about this Inquisitor named Reva. Like I'm sorry, I don't. I want
Right.
to see Obi-Wan and Anakin try to fuck each other up.
Right.
Like, that's why I'm there. But a show about Darth Vader specifically and like his journey, absolutely.
And include the Inquisitors.
Yeah,
'cause-
if that's a huge part of it. Give me the
like it.
Inquisitors. Give me him and the Inquisitors hunting down Jedi,
Yeah.
doing all this shit they did in the comics and or all the other lore they have.
Yeah, and more time on Mustafar and all
Yeah,
that
oh yeah.
stuff. Yeah, it would
Yeah,
be
you
really
could
cool.
do a ton, and I'd be all about the inclusion of the Inquisitors in that show.
There's a book on Ahsoka,
Uh-huh.
and it takes place during that time,
Yeah.
and where she's trying to, because that's the Inquisitor's job, is to hunt down the Jedi. So she's trying to stay clear of the Inquisitors.
Yep.
Eventually runs into one of them, and sweet ass battle scene and whatnot.
Yeah. I think where I originally, if I remember right, there is a video game. I think it was a Battlefront where a lot of it was Darth Vader centric and everything he was doing just as the Empire was starting to take everything over, and you played him largely in the game, and it was awesome. And I was like, why in the hell wouldn't this be the show? You know what I mean? And then what really made me want it again, one of my favorite things in Obi-Wan is whenever that spaceship's trying to take off and he just stops it.
Yeah.
It's just like, fuck yeah.
I was waiting
It's
for
so
that too because
badass.
obviously in the video games, like the Force is like they're able to use the Force to accomplish like much greater feats, and like to finally start seeing that in film, it was badass.
Especially him.
Yeah.
Just because he's such a raw power, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's
you
just
want the badasses to be badass,
badass,
sometimes.
yeah. Or
Who's
like,
who's that character that people keep saying they want? The kid from Shameless, and he played Joker in Gotham, the redhead.
he's in the video game that.
Oh, is it Cameron Monaghan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
It's
Cameron
Cal
Monaghan.
Kestis. So
That's it.
yeah,
He's
he's
in 3 video games now.
no, just 2. There's
Fallen Order. And
Fallen Order and Survivor.
Survivor, yep.
Yeah, it's those are solid games with a solid story too. Darth Vader's in both of those. What's cool about the second one? So there's this other character, former Jedi named Seer, and she has a fight in the second game with Darth Vader, and nearly kills him. Like that's you fight them and eventually like he overcomes her, but like she nearly kills him. So to see this would again kind of going back to like a Darth Vader show, you could have story arcs where he finds these Jedi who are legitimate threats and like has a tough time putting down some of these people. Like you could absolutely make a great series out of these things he goes on. But
Remember reading so before like Marvel had originally did the Star Wars comics,
And then
and then
Dark Horse got
Dark
it.
Horse, and then
Yeah.
went back to Marvel. So when Marvel originally did it, there was some comics where they talked about, where Darth Vader was going out and killing the Jedi and whatnot. And there was this character. He was like basically just this ball in his head, almost like a BB-8, but like. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm in this ball because I survived a fight with Vader."
Interesting. This is
Yeah.
a comic.
Yeah, it is a comic.
Yeah, I remember. I was trying to think. I've read some of the comics back in the day, but I don't know where they are, and I can't remember what all it was. I remember some of it was about Han. I feel like.
Yeah.
And they were Dark Horse for sure, but I can't. I picked them up like Hastings or something, and read a bunch of them, but I can't remember what all goes on in them at all.
well, there's just so much lore.
Yeah.
Like there really is. They could do so many different things.
Yeah.
They just have to execute,
I
which
wish.
is a problem lately.
It makes it easier that they're doing the shows, though. It gives a lot of room for like.
Yeah,
Generally, if they know they're going to do more than a season or whatever, but it gives them a lot of room for development that you normally want.
I wish they would get some of these movies going that they talk about. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Well, the
not
next
as
one is
excited
supposed to
about
be
the
a
movies.
Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's to wrap up that series.
And but my only problem with that though too is like they have a lot of open-ended shit that they're not going to be able to get accomplished in a 3-hour movie, even if it's 3 hours. I
Right.
feel like you keep seeing all the teasers that he's going to get his Mandalorian gear and shit, and it's like he's not even remotely close to that where we're at right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's going to
Unless they're gonna
accelerate some
jump
shit.
ahead in time. And
Right, and that's what drives me nuts. Like for instance, the Solo movie, the concept was good, but they rushed through it too quickly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I thought the guy that played him was good. I thought the general story was good. Thought it was pretty badass that they twisted Darth Maul in.
Donald Glover was in it too. Right?
Yeah,
And he did a really good job.
he was a
Lando.
really good Lando.
But
Yeah.
like it starts and it's fantastic, and then it's just like they hit a point they're like, well, I don't know, we just got to wrap it up somehow. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
the only thing that drives me nuts about some
And then
of
they
the
leave it
movies.
at the end where they're like, "Oh, I'm going to meet up with this gangster named Jabba." Well, I don't think they actually say Jabba, but
Yeah.
I'm going to meet up with this gangster, and then at the post credit scene they show Darth Maul.
Yeah, which is great, but it's just like it was just like you were on a path, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 6 fastballs, and no real conclusion to the
Yeah.
story. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And I think they were trying to get in that the Kessel Run in there.
Yeah. So that's the only thing that worries me because they've done, and probably a lot of this credit really belongs to Jon Favreau.
Him and what's
Dave
the other guy?
Filoni.
Yeah,
Filoni, yeah. But there's stuff David Filoni does I've talked about this, and some people really call me out on it. But like, there's a few things that Dave Filoni does that's a little out there, even for me. Like the hyperspace whales. I don't buy that. I was just like, whales that can travel at, hyper or at light speed with people on their back. That kind
You're
of.
just nitpicking. Now.
But that's.
They had to come up with some way
I
to travel
just
from
don't-
one galaxy to
yeah.
another.
I just was like, I don't. You're losing me. Like I'm pretty open minded to a lot of shit, but whales that travel at the speed of light without oxygen, I don't know. I'm not. And then I know people. I've talked to a few people that are like, this really bothers you of all the things, but I'm not big on the witches.
The Sith witches, yeah.
I don't like that.
Oh, yeah, the
very
Night
much.
Sisters.
Yeah.
I mean, I like.
that doesn't bother me at all.
Isn't that their way of explaining Darth Maul? Darth Maul and his brother were
Yeah,
raised
they're
by
they're
them
from
or something?
Dathomir, which is a
Yeah.
huge part of
Yeah.
those Jedi games too.
Yeah, but I don't.
You learn
like,
a lot more.
Did y'all read George? Well, and then here's again the contradictory. George Lucas's ideas for the sequel series, like if he would have wrote it.
Oh yeah,
where
yeah.
he was wanting Darth Maul to be the big
Villain? Well,
like
that'd be
he was
cool.
the Palpatine role.
Did you read any of Timothy Zahn's?
Yes.
I don't understand why somebody hasn't done that because
Right.
those are fantastic.
Well, they've sort of with Thrawn, and they had Thrawn and Ahsoka and Rebels.
But they fucking made him go back and completely rewrite Thrawn in order to make it
Yeah,
line
they
up
did.
because it doesn't quite line up in those 3 books. But I think those 3 books are fantastic.
They are.
I really do. Like,
and the inclusion of Mara Jade in there, which
Mhm,
I've heard George Lucas hates Mara Jade.
that might be. I don't know. She's fine in those books, I thought.
Yeah, I liked
but,
her in there. Where
um,
she had, it was like she was Palpatine's right hand, and
But like amnesic about it. Like she can't
yeah,
totally quite remember what.
and
like,
all,
it's
but
like a
all
slowly-
throughout she had this like voice in her head, kill Luke Skywalker,
Walker, yeah.
but at the same time she's falling in love with him. So.
Right, yeah. I don't know. I thought he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
I really did. And it's like, I watched some of like the Ahsoka stuff that's starting to introduce Thrawn, and I was just like, it just makes me want to see those 3 books so bad. And I know basically it's going to follow the second redone story arc of Thrawn.
Yeah,
And I haven't read any of that. I hear it's also good, and I'm sure it is.
I haven't read much of the
Yeah.
where they put it in the new canon, I guess you want to say, whereas. But I have read the original Thrawn books.
Yeah, I thought that Timothy Zahn killed it whenever he did.
Yeah, he did.
Those initial ones, and it's like, why wouldn't that just be the sequel? I mean, I get
Right.
it. They dicked around long enough. The actors couldn't probably. Well, although now, really, you could. I mean, based on what they did with Anakin and Obi-Wan
And Luke.
and then even, to be honest with you, in Rogue One, I thought that for the time period, it's pretty good. A little rough now, but like the fact that they got Tarkin and
Yeah.
Leia young in there was like, it's like, stick with this because it's gonna be
Right.
really good. And they
Yeah.
really did a good job with Luke in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, and Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Some people it really bothers. It does not bother me. It's like if that's what you got to do to keep the
Yeah.
story going, fucking.
I mean,
let's do it.
I like a mixture of the both, where they do the de-aging like they did, and then bring that actor who played the young Han Solo back,
Yeah.
and bring Donald Glover back as Lando,
Yeah.
which they've talked about doing a series or mini-series, but
Just him, I think. Just
Yeah.
about Lando, yeah. Which
they keep dicking around with that too.
that
so.
might be okay. It might not. I mean, I like Lando a lot. Not so sure I need him to be the center of the story.
Yeah, he's more of a supporting character than a main.
See, they do a nice job. Timothy Zahn did a nice job of Lando in those books too. I thought,
Yes.
where they assigned him to kind of what he was doing on Cloud City on that. It was basically lava again, if I remember right.
Yeah, it was like on some planet with
Yeah.
mining and
Yeah.
yeah.
But I don't know. I didn't mean to run everybody's steam out. What else do we like? I mean, this clearly has turned into Star Wars. Do you want
Right.
to switch, or do you just want to stay on Star Wars?
Well, we were talking about Ninja Turtles. How
Yeah.
we both like Ninja Turtles and
Yeah, that was my go-to cartoon when I was young.
same.
But that was also kind of just that late '80s, early '90s kids,
Yeah,
and that was kind of the
was that and Power Rangers?
yeah. Fucking
Yeah.
love Power Rangers too.
Yeah.
But like even now, like Nickelodeon's got like the Ninja Turtle shows. Like it doesn't seem to be like as big of a hit as it was back
No,
then for
I
like
don't think
us.
they've-
Like that was just.
I think they've watered them down so bad.
So
what I
that's
feel
actually if like the 1990 movie, I think's the first one Jim Henson did. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
pretty dark.
Yeah.
And it's more so based off like the original comics.
Mm-hmm.
But then the second one, if you notice, like they barely use their weapons and shit because like
I think
they wanted to target kids. So but,
There- Well, there was a whole movement. So this is kind of it's fun that you go into this. I was reading up on a bunch of the like animated series at one point, and there was this whole movement in the '90s to de-violence cartoons.
yeah.
oh yeah,
And so the Ninja Turtles first movie was like what 88 or 89, 88.
I think it was 90.
Was it?
yeah. The
Yeah,
original movie I think
so
was
you-
90, and
Was
like the
it?
second one was
It's
right
like it mixed
after.
around because Batman was 89 and
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
and like even the Batman was those movies. Well, granted it was fucking
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton, but they're a little bit darker too. But they were talking about how in a bunch of these shows, like Spider-Man, the animated series, Batman, the animated series, Superman, the animated series, that second Ninja Turtles movie, and then the Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, like all those superhero things, there was this huge movement where the censors made them actually de-violence some of
Veer
that
away
stuff.
from
Yeah,
it,
which don't get me wrong, like the second movie is awesome too. It's fun. It's just a
They don't
totally
use
different
their
vibe.
weapons.
Do not use
Not
their weapons.
one time do they use their weapons.
Well, I heard
No.
like Jim Henson. He wasn't a huge fan because he didn't like the violence.
Mhm.
It was actually his son that did most of the stuff, Brian
Yeah.
Henson.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think Henson played a more of a part in building those suits.
Yeah.
Like he had a big
Yep.
role in that. Which
Has anybody I'll bring us back to this, but just out of curiosity, has anybody watched Ron Howard's documentary about Jim Henson?
no,
He was on Conan one time talking about it, and I really want to watch it. It's on Disney. You can find it.
Is it the one called Idea Man or something?
Yes,
Okay.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I have watched
Yeah.
that.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. I
But
get it
I've
mixed
heard
up
they
with some of the
explain a
other
bunch
stuff.
of that
Yeah.
in there about all the stuff he did as far as that. But anyway, I don't want to go down that road. I do want to watch it sometime, but it sounds like it's pretty interesting. But like the other thing that they had to do, like in Spider-Man the animated series, they gave the example of like instead of killing, it's Mary Jane in that one, but her and the Green Goblin, instead of killing them, they have to fall and warp into a different dimension. So like I don't know if you guys
Isn't that-
remember
I think
that.
that's where they have the Spot, and the
Mhm.
Spot was like one of the villains in Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's when that opened up like the different dimension thing because they couldn't actually kill them off in the cartoon, so they just make them vanish into
Yeah.
a different dimension.
And that's how also they kind of explained later on in the series with Captain America and Red Skull, where it wasn't that Captain America got frozen, him and Red Skull were fighting, and they got frozen in suspended animation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Electro was Red Skull's son.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I remember bits and pieces of that. It's been so long since I watched that. I have rewatched some of the Batman the Animated Series randomly at times, but same thing. He doesn't have any lethal weapons, and he doesn't ever kill him. Him and Superman are just running around like stopping people from hurting themselves. Pretty much like picking them up and putting them in jail.
yeah, no, that original 1990 movie is by far my favorite
It's so
thing,
good.
Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
And it's like obviously it's darker. And I remember like a big thing was like Raphael says "damn" a lot. Well, he's a teenager in New York.
Damn!
Yeah.
He's a teenager in New York. Leave him alone. But it's just overall it's darker. And at the end, like Shredder's just kicking the shit out of all of them. It's like this feels real.
Yeah.
Like, this feels like there's a real threat here.
Mhm.
It's all about it. I kind of wish they would have kept that darker vibe.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get
Well-
they marketed and made a ton of fucking money marketing towards kids.
I really
So-
hope they go with that vibe and the Jim Henson kind of suits for this Last Ronin movie they keep talking about making.
Well, you're seeing that more these days, where like with the Deadpool, you're starting to see a lot of stuff that was once superheroes geared towards kids. Well, all those kids where they really kind of peaked with that stuff are
Growing
20s,
up,
30s, pushing 40 now. So like, start making this darker content.
Yeah.
Like my fucking 9-year-old kid, I'm sorry, probably not going to care about a Ninja Turtle movie. That's just
Right.
not something he's into.
Robbie likes the Ninja Turtles that are currently on. She goes to Pages and watches it all day.
Yeah.
She has Ninja Turtle pajamas that she likes
Okay,
to wear.
all right.
It's weird though. She doesn't ever watch it at my house. She has like, depending on which house she's at, she's got different things.
Shows
that she's,
per house? That's
shows
awesome.
that she's interested in per house. So it's super annoying because like,
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
"Oh, where are your Ninja Turtles? No.
Well, you know
not
what?
Here. It's
Like-
like, what the fuck? I love the Ninja Turtles.
Well, whatever. If they're bringing it back to kids, just give me a rated R Last Ronin,
Yeah.
and then water it down again for the kids.
And you know the kids can watch Mutant Mayhem.
yeah, which
that series.
I was not a fan of.
You wasn't a fan of that
Not
one?
really.
I liked it, and I liked that series they did.
But it
on
was like real like
Paramount.
stop motion animation, right? And I'm just not
Yeah.
a huge fan of that style. Like I can't
I
get
don't know
into
if I know
it.
that one.
Yeah,
It's Seth Rogen did
yeah.
it. Like it's fairly
Oh.
new. It was
Gotcha.
okay. Like
And I liked how they focused more on the mutants side of things
Yeah.
because I like that more about Ninja Turtles. I like the mutant supporting characters.
Yeah.
So instead
Yeah.
of jumping right into Shredder, they were like, well, let's do like a group of these mutants.
Have they ever done Krang? Did they do that in one of the movies?
They did
Michael
the-
Bay's second one.
Yeah.
was Krang.
Brad Garrett played the voice of him.
Those
think I
movies were
watched
okay
that.
too, but like
They weren't great.
No.
Johnny Knoxville's your teenage Leonardo.
Yeah.
Get the
Yeah.
fuck out of here.
They didn't.
Stephen Amell. I was so excited when they're like, Stephen Amell's going to be Casey Jones. I was like, oh, cool, because I loved him as Arrow.
Yeah.
And so he
Exactly.
could be like Arrow as Casey Jones, but no, it was...
Not the same.
No, he was like a
Nothing.
security guard and
But to be fair, the guy
they
who played him
were-
in 1990 was perfect.
Elias Cotier.
I think that's what his name
Another
is.
thing
was
about that
awesome.
is they wouldn't
It
let him wear
was.
his mask in the second one because too many kids were freaked out by him wearing because of Jason.
Joe.
They related it too much to Friday the 13th that like if you notice in the second and third one he basically never had.
Yeah, he doesn't really
True.
do a ton there.
Yeah.
And
And they
I
kind
think
of
he's in the third one too.
Yeah.
he is.
I
Second
don't
and
think
third
he's
one.
much in the second one, if at all. I didn't
Briefly.
I don't
he
think-
was.
yeah.
Little bit,
Okay,
not
like
much.
cameo kinda.
He's got a fairly big role in the third one.
Yeah, where he like watches over the
samurai.
because it was the
yeah.
samurai that switched place with the turtles.
Yeah.
And
And
so
he's,
he's
like,
watching over
teaching them
them.
hockey and shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But they kind of I feel like they kind of kept a hold of that all the way through cuz like I'm trying to remember if I remember seeing him where he really was like an asswipe hockey player anywhere after that 1990 movie.
No,
Truthfully.
not at all.
It's like they just everywhere just completely changed that character kind
Yeah.
of, which is weird.
Yeah. The 1990 is still probably, like I said, by far my favorite content that's been released. But I'm a big fan of the Last Ronin story. I've heard a lot of things like they're trying to do a God of War style game out of it.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it a movie. I just hope they don't mess it up because you have the content. It's a great story. Like
I really like where they've gone with it because now it's like, Last Ronin starts off where it's like 20 or so years after, what we know of Ninja Turtles.
yeah,
And then now they've taken it even like 20 or so years after that.
Yeah.
And now it's like a new generation of turtles where April, where she's old as fuck and I don't think she has like a doctorate, but she's learned like medical and everything. And then her daughter, hers and Casey's daughter, they're like raising this new generation of turtles.
Gotcha. Yeah. Is that and you're saying that's what's on currently now or
That-
they're getting ready to
That's like the series, the Last Ronin series. So it's like Last Ronin 2.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
okay.
When's that supposed to happen or do you know?
They're currently doing this in the comics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Gotcha,
what's current.
gotcha.
Okay, see,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
There's a main series they're doing in comics, but this
Yeah.
is like the Last Ronin universe. Yeah.
Because when Tim first talked to me about the Last Ronin, I didn't know what he was talking about, but I seem to recall, and maybe you'll remember, I seem to recall them doing an episode or two of it in one of the like 90s animated.
Okay, so the 2000s cartoon. The one
Okay.
that came out in 03 or whatever.
Yeah.
They had
Because he started telling me stories like I've seen this, I just can't remember.
So, they did where like the turtles split up into different dimensions, and one of them was I can't remember which one it was because spoiler alert, Michelangelo is the last Ronin.
Ronin, yeah.
But
I know
in
that.
this episode, it was like Raphael or something like that, and it was in a post-apocalyptic.
And they all wear red. It doesn't. They quit
Yeah.
doing their individual colors.
Well, that's how they were in
Well,
the original
they're-
comics.
yeah.
Is they were just all one.
Oh,
red.
that's right. Yeah.
They
Well,
only told them
see-
apart by their weapons, I think.
see, I remember
Oh,
this.
yeah.
The cartoon though did that same thing, if I remember right. And
Yeah,
it was
there's
weird
the-
because it's like it jumps. Like it does the Last Ronin, but I think it also does the whole thing where they're all just red and you can't tell them
Yeah.
apart. And then like it was a weird.
They did like a multiverse kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like you get like 2 episodes about this part of it and then 2 episodes about this part of it and like if I remember right the animation styles
Yeah,
kind of
a little
changed
grittier and-
between them and stuff. But anyway, sorry. not
The
to-
thing about Last Ronin is, even though this is a comic that's going on currently, it was an idea that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, the
Yeah.
co-creators, they had came up with this story before, like when they were still writing the original comics.
Gotcha.
They came up with this as like the last Ninja Turtle story,
Mm-hmm.
but they never, put it out or anything like that.
Yeah.
The 03 cartoon, Peter Laird worked on it.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I think he was adding that idea in
Yeah.
there.
Yep. That's what I remember it from mostly. Kind of like, I mean, Batman the Animated Series also did the graphic novel that is called
Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, where they
there's
had
2
Carrie
movies
Kelly.
of that, like 2 animated movies of that.
Yeah, that's right.
They're good movies.
That's
Yes. And it was, they just randomly did like 2 episodes
Mm-hmm.
in the animated series towards the end that did all that. And it was the same type of way though. They changed, like they made the animation match the comic a little bit more. And
Was it Frank Miller?
Yes, my dad eventually got me the graphic novel, which I think I still have somewhere, but I'm kicking myself in the ass right now for not knowing exactly where it's at. I read it more than once, and it's fantastic. Like, I absolutely love it. But I remember that cartoon, like, really did it justice. I mean, it's almost the exact same.
I remember watching that episode thinking, man, this is
weird.
Sweet. Yeah, weird, but freaking sweet. And then realizing, oh, this is actually a classic story.
Yeah.
So whenever I first heard about, like, The Last Ronin, and I could kind of had, like, a synopsis of what it was. Like, there's one turtle left. I'm like, how are you going to fucking do a Ninja Turtle comic without 4 turtles?
It's really fucking good.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
And yeah, I never could like find the entire line of comics. Mm-hmm. So like there's tons of YouTube videos that basically go through the entire story of the comics. And I was like, this is pretty fucking sweet actually.
Yeah. They're all 4 there. Just the other 3 are
they're ghosts.
Yeah, or
like he has,
figment of his imagination or something.
Like he hears them talking a lot. But the fact that it's Michelangelo and it's not the Michelangelo, he's not funny at all. Like he's just this fucking broken.
This years of, and then they've done where it showed you the years in between where he goes off into Japan and stuff and all this, and it's just hard in him.
Yeah,
it
is a solid story, and the fact that like I think in that isn't April like pretty battle torn up too.
Yeah.
Like she's missing like a leg or something. It's almost like a post-apocalyptic world.
She's the only one left besides him, right?
Her daughter like befriends him, but it's Shredder's grandson, I think, who's basically got like this fucking high-tech armor.
Yeah.
And the thing is like the other turtles all died like individually, almost doing like their own missions. Like they weren't all together when they died.
And they showed this I think they called it like Last Ronin the Lost Years. And they showed like how each one of them died.
Yeah, it was
even
all
how Casey died and stuff.
Yeah, like it was all fighting against this grandson's troops over the years. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I think like Leonardo and Casey were together. They were off doing something with their forces or whatever, because it's like there was a resistance against. I wish I could remember his name, but I'm pretty sure it is Shredder's grandson. It's not his son.
I can't remember because it was like because Shredder's daughter. Or, well, actually, in the original comics, it was his granddaughter. But, like, how they do with Thanos and Gamora.
Yeah.
Where, like, Gamora was originally supposed to be Thanos' granddaughter, and then they, like, in the MCU, that's his daughter.
Yeah.
But, like, so Shredder's daughter, for the sake of this series, Karai, and then she's been in a lot of shit, like the 03 cartoon.
Yeah,
she's a big player. And, so then this is her son.
That's right.
And he's got of like an empire. He's like an emperor, kind of in this.
Yeah, like he's created. Like I said, it's this like the real post-apocalyptic thing, and he's like that's a great word, is empire, and there's this resistance against him, and that's like.
And where that April and Casey's daughter is like the leader of this resistance.
Yep, she's a huge player in that, and then like I said, I think Leonardo and Casey die together with the resistance off trying to do something, and I forget what. Donatello's with Splinter, I think he is. I think him and Splinter and Donatello die together.
Yeah.
Because they go to a meeting with, I can't remember what, but basically it's an ambush.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of years since I've gone through the whole story, but it's an ambush and that's how they die. And like.
It's been a minute since I've read it all the way through. I think I'm
like it's a pretty elaborate story. Like I was really surprised when I got through it all. I was just like, damn, that is. Yeah. I get all the hype.
So you guys like have this? Like, did you buy them or?
I found like a 45-minute on YouTube that basically went through each issue of the comic.
Gotcha.
I have the comics.
You do have them. Yeah. Sweet.
It's a good.
I would like to read it someday.
It's good. I would recommend. It's.
Well, I have them.
You got it. You got it in now.
I'm not to change gears here, but I'm so down a Stephen King rabbit hole right now that I can't get myself out of. So it's gonna be a while.
Like, so where are you at in the rabbit hole? You know anything about Dark Tower?
I have not even began to even put my brain into Dark Tower because I know that's a whole completely separate thing.
Or is it?
Well, probably not.
Dark Tower is supposed to be like the middle of all of because Stephen King is like he's got a whole big universe and Dark Tower is right there in the middle.
Yeah, I plan to. I'm not doing this. I have not done it in order. So where Kiefer and I have done an episode on this, and we're probably not done. So if at some point you want to come in and talk Stephen King, we'll bring you
All
in
right.
too. I fucking love.
Yeah,
Stephen
it's
King.
really getting out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I love Stephen King. I had never, I watched The Shining, obviously, at a relatively young age. We had it on a VHS back in the day. And then I was aware of, like, the 97 series about that. And then, like, throughout time, like, have seen in some of the stuff that, he had written that had been turned into movies, which,
Right, like
spoiler
The Stand
alert,
and stuff.
every time this guy writes a book, it becomes a movie.
Right.
Like within a couple years too. Like they didn't fuck around either. It's insane. And but what I did, I had just Simon and Robbie really both. We really went hard on Halloween this year, and like started like
You
September.
guys usually do go hard on Halloween.
No, yeah, but we have done like
You're like
we
one
do,
of those families
but
that, like celebrities usually, they have like all these.
we turn Halloween into like a month, honest to God, month or 6-week long extravaganza this year, and started watching scary movies like the last week of September all the way through like the first week of November, just flushing it all out. And Simon got really liked it a lot. So I had never, I knew about it. I remember the Tim Curry thing and all that. And like, I can't remember. I mean, I've saw bits and pieces, here and there. And I, like I said, knew about The Shining. I'm trying to think what else would have really stuck out to me. I had forgotten until recently, but knew he did like Shawshank Redemption, Stand By Me, which was the body, obviously.
Yeah, that was the name of the story.
Yeah. And then Children of the Corn, I kind of forgot, but kind of remembered. Short story, whatever.
Green Mile was his too.
Yes, which
Fantastic movie.
it might be my fucking up there for my favorite. It really is.
Like movies of old time, or your
the
favorite
book,
Stephen King?
The book.
I've never read the book.
Oh my god. And it is very, very much the movie, but you know how a book is just a little bit. Yeah.
You ever read 11/22/63?
Not yet. I know
Oh
that's
my
a big
God.
deal. Yeah, there's
It's so good.
Even his newest one with like the picture of the house. I can't think of what it's fucking called though. It's very new. Like it was probably done in like 23.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. But anyway, so what I did was I just mentioned. So I watched it, and I sat down and watched it with him, and I was like, man, I didn't realize this much shit was going on in it. Like I just thought it was the clown, and and I was like, so I come on the podcast, was talking to Kiefer about, we were doing a whole Halloween extravaganza that month, on here too. And I was like, I really want to sit down and read it. And he was like, I read it when I was in like 5th grade. And that's the only one I've read. And I remember really liking it. I can't remember everything, but I remember really liking it. And I was like, well, I want to read it. So I had mentioned to my mom that I wanted to start reading some of them.
Yeah.
And she got me It, Carrie, and The Shining for Christmas.
Okay.
I read all 3 of those books in like 2 weeks. A little bit more, 2.5
And
weeks.
there's some thick ass books, aren't they?
Yeah, the man doesn't put anything out unless you get into his novellas. Man doesn't put anything out less than 500 fucking pages, basically. Like, and then it's 1,200 or whatever. And I'm finally on it. I saved it because it was so long. I read The Shining first, couldn't stop. I just remember reading it, and even knowing kind of sort of what was going to happen, like the whole time I'm reading, I'm like, this thing can't possibly ratchet up anymore. And every time you complete a chapter, it's like. It's like, I can't fucking stop reading this. And then I went to Carrie because it was shorter. And I liked Carrie. It's by far not my favorite, but it's well done. And that's the first one.
Right.
And I read that in 2 days, I think, basically. It's a little shorter. But, like, the thing about it is there's no fucking chapters. You're getting the story from, like, 3 or 4 different sources.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I haven't read those, but is it true with those, like... Stephen King, that man cannot end something. He can go on for days about something, but when it comes to ending something, like he did with the freaking Dark Tower, which I'm not gonna spoil too much of it, but he can't end something. And if he tries to, it's just...
I don't know, because I think the problem that people have with it is the endings are not like M. Night Shyamalan or something.
Oh, yeah.
They're not really twisty for the most part.
No.
They just kind of end.
Yeah, they kind of end, or he kind of rushes it.
His books are so fantastic at build-up.
Yeah.
and he doesn't like. It's not building to something to mind fuck you. You know what I mean? Like they
Right.
just kind of end most of the time, in my opinion, the way they should. Randomly, he's good at like Salem's Lot. I read it third, I think. I went to Salem's Lot.
Okay, so
after.
you've read Salem's Lot. So when
Yeah.
you get into the Dark Tower, there's a book where it picks up Father Callahan's story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I have finally read enough of them where there is enough reference to Derry and Cujo, and so like in Pet Cemetery, there's a lot of stuff in there
Yeah.
that is like nobody's ever heard of anything about animals except for that weird thing that happened over in whatever town with the dog
Yeah.
that went rabid. And then like there'd be like there's some weird stuff that happened in Derry.
And
or-
in 11/22/63, which is
Yeah.
about time travel, he time travels to like the 60s of Derry.
yeah, interesting. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But like Salem's Lot, like you've never read it.
No, which I need to
It was-
because I want to get the beginning part of that story
It
where
was
I caught
hard. It was hard to put it down.
Yeah.
It really was, and it's like 500-600 pages, and It probably took me a week or a little bit more. Like, it's insane. I'll just read and read and read with them. What I've always heard is at some point when you're done with it, though. With Steven. Like, it's just like you'll read and you'll be amazed, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, nah, I don't need that for a while. And I can kind of understand why, sort of, because not to give all this away, I guess. And we've really gotten off track, Tim.
No.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to.
Just sitting here like,
I did not mean to do this.
I was just never a big reader of books.
Books, yeah.
I know, like Steve always had. My old roommate Steve always had Stephen King's books like fucking everywhere. Like I've never heard people speak poorly of him. It's just I was never a big fucking like reader.
Yeah.
I just wasn't. I'll watch the movies. I know I've seen some of his movies, like his big ones.
You'd be surprised how much his.
see, I never was.
Most of the movies, there's stuff that's just different enough
Yeah.
that drives me a little bit nuts.
I never like been big.
I
into him
wouldn't know.
because
Yeah,
I'm not a big
but-
horror guy. But then I got introduced to Dark Tower, and then that's where I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this guy's.
Well, like
good.
Shawshank Redemption, for instance, is 112 pages. And the movie is 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that's a pretty
Yeah.
long movie.
But it is literally pretty. There's a couple little things they changed in it that didn't bother me, but I noticed it. It is pretty much verbatim, that book.
Okay.
And both the movies fantastic. Obviously, won all those awards. It's
a great movie.
The book is fantastic.
You ever read Secret Window or watched it?
No, I haven't
That
yet.
was
That is based on one of the short stories.
Yeah.
That's the Robert Downey Jr. Right? Isn't he?
it's
in that?
Johnny Depp.
Or it's Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kiefer and I talked about that at one point. I can't remember which little story it was based on, but
The story was called Secret Window, Secret Garden.
okay.
Yeah.
That's Shawshank Redemption was Rita Hayworth in Shawshank Redemption, and then like The Body and Stand By Me.
Oh,
I
yeah.
obviously didn't want to call that movie The Body. But what I will say is like, they're not like mind-blowing endings.
No.
I agree with that, but I don't there's not one of them that I've hated how it ended. And then I would also say that, to be honest with you, one thing that probably drives people nuts that I'm starting to notice, sort of, kind of, is I think largely the villains in them are probably all the same. Truthfully, I think
The
you're
same
getting
guy.
well
Are
the
the
same
same-
entity. I would say it's
Yeah.
basically the same entity.
They're almost all traced back to
Yep.
either the Crimson King or the Man in Black, which are the big villains in Dark Tower.
Yeah. And when they team, so what I've read so far is it seems to primarily be either the same demon or possibly the devil itself. And
Yeah.
these are just all the different ways
Which I think
in all these different
They
areas.
say Pennywise is
Well,
part of that.
in The Shining, not to give this away, but in The Shining, he does, and this would have been before it, but he kind of does refer to what takes over Jack and is in charge of the hotel as it.
Okay.
Before he even wrote
Okay.
it. Like, he just kind of refers to it as it. You know what I mean? Once, from Danny's. Did you read Dr. Sleep?
No.
Okay. Sorry, we're so close to having to wrap here, but we can go back to something.
Yeah,
you
I'd like
guys
to
want.
touch
I
on
can-
Marvel
Yeah.
if if at all possible.
You're fine.
Yeah.
I'm not in a
You're
hurry. It's up to you guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of Marvel stuff I could talk about. The biggest thing I mentioned it before this was like, what are your thoughts on RDJ coming back to the Marvel universe?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have an opinion and I want to see how it stacks up with other opinions.
Okay. So I realize what they're doing here. They're doing the multiverse. And I know they're going to say that this is some kind of a variant of Tony Stark. And I've also heard that they're going to eventually recast Doctor Doom a little bit later on down the road, that this is just something they're doing for the multiverse saga. So I realize that they're doing this where he's a variant of Tony Stark. So I'm curious to see how that works out.
Yes. It's got to be that. I've heard, so the concept of like anchor beings was introduced in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yes.
So I've heard that it has a direct connection to Tony Stark's death.
Yeah.
And then also, so my thing is, in Deadpool and Wolverine, they brought Chris Evans back. Sorry, man. Brought Chris Evans back as Johnny Storm, and
Yes.
everyone's cool with it.
Never saw Chris Evans die, so it doesn't.
Well, but you're bringing back a character, and it completely...
You didn't see
I
him.
don't know what happened.
You-
And,
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
never got to
Deadpool
that
and
part.
Wolverine totally acknowledged, like,
The,
it's set up at first like you think it's
Yeah.
Captain America.
The biggest thing
Right.
that I have seen to this point, and I think this is all Ant-Man stuff, but like it's very clear they're rebuilding the Avengers. I've seen enough of that to know that it's going to get past to like Ant-Man and the
Yeah.
Wasp and the dude that becomes Captain America with the wings,
the Falcon.
the
Falcon,
Falcon,
yes.
and who the fuck else did they all?
Oh, there's Doctor
Spider-Man.
Strange still.
It kind
Yeah,
of makes you think
Doctor
Spider-Man's gonna be part
Well,
of
see,
that.
I'm hearing some stuff with Spider-Man, too. But to wrap up my RDJ spiel, like, I'm fine with it because it's the Russo brothers, and I think if they were going to do it, they were going to have a good way to do it. There is a comic line where Doctor Doom is like a variant of Tony Stark.
Yeah, I've heard
So
this,
he's
yeah.
got, like, there's a path for that.
And I also saw that they're gonna do like an evil version of the Avengers where Chris Evans is coming back, Scarlett Johansson.
I've heard a lot of
Mark
those
Ruffalo.
rumors.
So like if Mark Ruffalo plays Maestro, who's an evil version of Hulk, and if Chris Evans is Captain Hydra, where he's becomes a Hydra agent, and if Scarlett Johansson is some kind of variant of Black Widow, and
Yeah, I think
all
there's a
this, so
lot
there's
of
like an evil team.
there's a lot of stuff they
Masters
could
of
do
Evil.
with that with the multiverse story, and it'd probably be a good time to tie it up and sort of move on because it's been real hit or miss for me.
Yeah. And I think they're gonna move on from here. They're gonna move on to X-Men.
They should, like they
Yeah.
fucking should. They
And
have the rights
just-
back
just
to them.
redo it, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
where
could
I
sort
think
of-
they're going to start introducing some young Avengers or young X-Men. Well, I mean, they're doing young Avengers as well, but
Yeah, like you've got the rights to them back. Like I'm pretty excited about the Fantastic Four movie.
Oh,
it's
me
a totally
too.
different vibe. So I think there's things that could happen there. I was texting him. I'm getting super into the new Daredevil show,
Okay.
and it's making me go back because I never really watched it when it was on Netflix.
Who's playing him?
Charlie
Charlie
Cox.
Okay.
I'm
it's
not
good.
caught up on it. Like I watched the first episode of Born Again, and I haven't watched
the fourth
any of
one just
season
came
3.
out.
Didn't they try to do a shitty Daredevil show?
Well, Ben
Somewhere
Affleck
else.
played him. In
That was the movie. I remember
yes.
that.
Yeah.
But then they tried again.
Well, they did Netflix where Charlie Cox played him.
Okay.
And then they did
was-
a
it was
whole
pretty successful.
Defenders
Okay.
with Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Jessica
Okay.
Jones.
Yeah.
And then they quit doing that. and
They quit
now-
doing so now. Now they're bringing him into the MCU.
Oh,
Charlie
okay.
Cox did a little cameo as Daredevil in Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Okay.
Yeah,
then
and
he was-
She-Hulk.
And She-Hulk.
Okay.
And so now they've. And then Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin was on the Hawkeye show.
Okay.
Which I wouldn't really crazy with the Hawkeye show, and it kind of
Oh, I thought it was the bee's knees.
it was okay, but like because I had seen some of Daredevil, so like it's very dark. It's a very dark themed show,
Yeah.
And Born Again's pretty much the same way.
Echo was pretty good too. Did you ever watch Echo?
I never finished it. What I saw, I liked. I'm real bad about it. It doesn't just immediately grip me. I'll get to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was solid. Right away, the Daredevil scenes were sweet. Like just because, I mean, to see him in suit again. I've made it through 4 episodes of Daredevil, and it's kind of the direction I've heard the new Spider-Man's going to go. Like he's going to get
Okay.
back to like the street level stuff.
Yeah. But they also said they're going to try to do the whole symbiote thing where he's on the planet. As
Yeah, they set
symbiotes.
that up at the end of No Way Home. But, dude, they need to quit fucking around and bring Miles Morales in.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great character.
They already have his uncle in there, Donald Glover.
They've confirmed that. So, I mean,
Yes.
he's there. They need to do it. And now would be time to do it. Because, I mean, Tom Holland probably didn't want to keep doing it forever. This is his 4th solo movie.
Yeah. I think I've read a rumor also that
bro.
I think I've also read a rumor
those
that
guys get tired of that.
they would introduce Miles Morales, but he'd be part of Tobey Maguire's the same
I don't
Raimi
care.
universe.
I don't bring them all back. Bring them all back. No Way Home is great.
Which one is that? The one where it is all of them?
Yeah.
Garfield and everybody.
Yeah. It's all about the multiverse.
I want to see that, but I'm not close to there.
You'll get there.
It's not looking good.
You're just gonna have to dedicate some time, bud.
I don't have time.
This
I gotta
is
get
where
caught up on Star Wars. I'm watching season 3 of Full Swing came out. It's
So
just
you keep finding other stuff to watch. Is your
Quarterback
problem?
2
Yeah.
is gonna come out.
see, I watched everything as
I'm
they came
reading
out,
Stephen King.
and I don't think I'd have been able to catch up if I hadn't have done that. Watched them as they came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now there's so much.
Yeah. You just got such a
MCU.
backlog now.
I know.
And there are shows like I won't watch them all. Like I haven't watched all the What If stuff.
I thought
so-
those were pretty good too.
I've heard they were good. It's
Yeah.
just like
I love
don't
that
know.
they have. Well,
Agents
Howard.
of S.H.I.E.L.D. Did you spend a lot of time on that?
No, I didn't. I knew it kind of went right along with the movies.
It did, and then it veered off. But I loved how they tied Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Captain America Winter Soldier, because that was one of my favorite MC movies. And then they had these episodes where it was kind of like how they did episodes of Clone Wars, where it fit right in with Revenge
Yeah.
of the Sith. They
Yeah.
did that with S.H.I.E.L.D. and
Yeah.
Winter Soldier.
So is Winter Soldier your favorite MCU movie? Or
I
it's
would say
one
so,
of the
yeah.
favorite.
Well, No Way Home is up there,
Okay.
but Winter Soldier has just
All right.
a special place there.
Mine, I've thought about it a lot. Mine is honestly probably Civil War.
Okay.
Iron Man was my guy. I fucking love Iron Man.
Well, I watched Civil War. I remember not a lot about it.
It's so good.
That's when they introduced Spider-Man, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the Civil War comic and the whole should we or shouldn't we report who we are
Yeah.
arc. Like I love it. And I know I've read some of it and I can't remember a whole lot.
I
of
like
it,
how
but
the comics started off with, it was like the New Warriors. They had a reality show, and they did.
don't remember
They were
that.
fighting like a Molecule Man or something like that,
Yeah.
and he exploded. And then that's how they're like, well, should they be registering because they're
right.
dangerous?
Yeah, yeah. I've read bits and pieces of it, and I've always wanted to go. Like I remember trying to look it up and to grab it and read it all, like truthfully in succession. But
Mark Millar wrote that one. He's a really good writer.
yeah, it's a shitload too, if I remember
Yeah.
right. Like,
I'm a big fan of kind of seeing like the effects of these movies playing out. Like it's part of why I like Rogue One so much. Like you're seeing characters that aren't necessarily a part of like your main story of
Yeah.
characters.
yeah,
So almost like a sort of a side mission for a film. That's kind of what I thought Civil War was too. Like you're seeing the repercussions of their fights and what's happening to the rest of the world. And like both characters like have very valid points,
Yeah.
very valid reasons for the positions they take.
I liked how it was low key, not low key, but low key.
Yeah.
It was Baron Zemo orchestrating it.
Yeah, like it was a great villain.
Yeah, and
And
then
he's
they brought
doing
him
it-
back in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I wish they would bring him into Thunderbolts because he's supposed to be the leader.
He's a
of the
great character.
Thunderbolts.
And I particularly loved his character because he wasn't doing things because he wanted power or anything. He was doing things because he was heartbroken.
Yeah,
He just like
because the Avengers essentially killed his dad.
and his dad, his
civilian.
wife, and his kid, and he found
Yeah,
them all three
yeah.
together. But like, he has that whole. He's talking to Black Panther, I think, in the movie, and he's just talking about like the Avengers were gone, and we were left to clean up everything.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, that's a good point, man. Like, I kind of get that position, but then like Cap's got all the good points of like, what if there's some place we need to go and they don't let us? And Tony Stark's like, we're dropping buildings on kids and killing them, and we're just dipping out of town. Like, we need to be held accountable. And fuck, that's a good point too.
So
yeah. That's what I remember about it. They do a really good job of just just like the real world, where it's just like there's so much good and so much bad in everything
Yeah.
you do, and like
Yeah.
Every time Civil War gets brought up, Kim hated Civil War.
The
because
movie?
because she wasn't caught up with the Marvel movies.
Oh,
And so
Yeah,
then,
I can't do
so
that.
then I'm trying to tell her, well, this is because of this movie, and this is going to
Yeah.
branch off to that movie. And she was like, it's just one big fucking trailer.
yeah, yeah,
The only thing that matters is the fight at the airport.
yeah.
One thing I was super pumped about, because like I'd always known about in the cartoons and even the comics, like he had the ability to like scan fight patterns and stuff. Tony Stark did.
No.
And I was like, if that fucking doesn't come up at some point, like that's a ridiculous waste. And the fact that he does it in Captain America
Yeah.
is like, I don't care what anyone says. Iron Man won.
Iron Man won. Like when
Iron
he was
Man
saying-
totally won.
When he was talking about which one is his favorite movie, I was thinking to what I've seen so far. I was like, it might be Iron Man 1 for me, which is like the first
Yeah.
one, basically. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Hulk in 2006 technically, but I don't know if they were thinking that hard about it whenever they did that one.
You mean the one with Eric Bana or the one with Edward Norton?
Norton.
Okay. Oh, where it
Eric
was.
Bana's was like in 2002 or 3. And that was
was-
done
Yeah,
by
well,
that was done by that
Tony
Japanese
Stark's
guy.
at-
Ang
It's
Lee.
Ang Lee. Yeah.
Tony
also did
Stark's at the
Brokeback
end
Mountain.
of he's at the end of the Incredible Hulks. They were
Yes.
definitely
Yeah.
trying to set up an Avengers.
And
Avengers,
Thunderbolt
yeah.
Ross, yeah.
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 Yeah, you're
And
right.
then now they're pulling things from there. I guess in Brave New World, the leader, the guy
Yeah.
that Samuel Stearns actually becomes the leader in it,
Mhm.
which I haven't watched it yet. And then of course they have Thunderbolt Ross, but the original actor died, so they have Harrison Ford playing him.
Yeah.
And I think
okay.
Liv Tyler is back as Betty Ross.
Yeah.
I haven't officially seen that, but that'd be all right.
And what if they did an episode where they did the whole scene at the university, but they used Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. See, I didn't realize Harrison Ford he replaced who?
William Hurt.
Yeah.
That's right.
So,
okay.
yeah, he's
Yeah, I
who
didn't
played
realize
General
that.
Ross.
Gotcha.
And so I don't know how they're doing that. If they're saying it's because of the multiverse, or they're just saying, oh yeah, like how Terrence Howard originally played Rhodey.
Rhodey,
and then-
yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then Don Cheadle, where they were like,
Yeah, that's,
oh, it's
I
the
don't-
same dude.
Yeah, I know. I looked into some of that. There's conflicting stories about why that happened. I had heard that, what's the first guy's name?
Terrence Howard.
Terrence Howard wanted back on. I heard that he wanted a ridiculous amount of money, though, to come back
Well,
on.
so he made more money than Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
in the
Kind of
first
like
one.
Crispin Glover in Back to the Future.
Future,
where
yeah.
He wanted a ridiculous amount.
Well, oh, God, I don't want to go down Back to the Future. I was just reading some stuff about Back to the Future, too.
I
that's
could
kinda
go an
interesting.
hour on that one,
But
too.
I need to watch them all again. But like, yeah, it's like that whole movie was gonna be a lot different than what.
Oh, because they filmed the whole thing with Eric Stoltz. Or
Yes.
almost the whole thing.
Yeah, there was just recently. Well, I don't know how recent the actual interview was, but I saw the video recently where Michael J. Fox talked about all that and how that happened, and then like he was. I don't want to do that. Sorry, I don't. It was
Do a
just
whole other
interesting.
episode.
Yeah, a whole other episode. No, what I was gonna say though was, so Terrence Howard, he wanted like too much money. He wanted to be part of it again. He said that like he basically was never contacted. They say that they contacted him, but he wanted even more money. And like I had also heard that he didn't get along with some of them the whole time they had filmed. He says that he never had a problem with anybody the whole time they filmed. And like I had also heard that Don Cheadle was buddies with somebody, and they were just like, let's just use Don Cheadle instead. He's cheaper, and yeah. So
Now, have you heard any of the stuff with Edward Norton on them recasting him? But like they had a plan for a sequel with Edward Norton. It was supposed to be more darker and cerebral.
yeah.
And they promised him the world, and then they're like, fuck you, we're gonna go with Mark Ruffalo now.
Yeah,
It's a cutthroat business.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, I do remember some of that, but I can't remember what all. I would have to go back and look it up to remember what all actually transpired with all that.
I remember
They
I wrote
basically shelved it, though, and like it kind of didn't get very good reviews. And if I remember right, Edward Norton was afraid. I might be totally not remembering this right. I remember because that one didn't do particularly great. And then they were moving forward with Iron Man, which got popular, and they did a really good job of like, there was a lot of like, do we want the Hulk to be like standalone movies? Because they felt like they were having a hard time with him being like the center of the movies.
There was also some rights issues because Universal owned the rights to Hulk, and
because
where
of the
they were
Ang Lee
like,
thing, or before Marvel actually started.
yeah, before, and then so like Universal produced the Edward Norton movie,
Mm-hmm.
and then so their deal, like how Disney or Marvel has the deal with Sony with Spider-Man, they had a deal with the Hulk, and they were like, well, now you can only put Hulk if it's Avengers related.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So there was a bunch of weird stuff, and Edward Norton did have was not so sure he wanted to do it again because I think he felt like it was kind of damaging.
I remember writing an article on that when I wrote for Screen Geek.
Yeah.
Writing an article about Edward Norton's time and that planned sequel.
He's kind of an odd duck. I
He
mean,
is.
He's really good at what he does. But.
You don't talk about Fight Club.
What do you think about James Gunn in the new Superman movie?
Oh yes, we have to touch on that. I love it. I've been watching. So I watched The Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Hate that fucking title, but whatever.
That's the first one, right?
Yeah, that was basically the first thing he did.
With Will Smith and.
Well, I guess there was Suicide Squad with Will
Okay,
Smith.
so that's what I was
yeah.
trying to get clarification.
Yeah.
You're talking about James Gunn's
Yeah.
The Suicide
Suicide
with
Squad, okay.
which
Idris
is
Elba.
a sequel,
Yeah.
sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and John Cena. And
Yep.
then they did Peacemaker.
Yeah.
And then now they're sort of starting a new universe, but it still has some of the characters from Peacemaker and Suicide Squad. So they done Creature Commandos, the animated series.
I haven't watched that. I don't know what you're talking about, though.
So yeah, that was really good. And then now that's going to go into Superman.
Okay.
And so what I've seen so far with James Gunn, if this is the universe he's molding, if this is going to be his new universe, and I know Superman's going to be lighter than Peacemaker and Suicide Squad was, more
Yeah.
family friendly. But like seeing how they're bringing in these other characters like Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, and
Yeah.
they got Mr. Terrific in there and stuff. And
Yeah, so kind of the vibe I'm getting is,
Who's playing Superman?
David Cornsweet.
That's
Cornsweet. He's been in a few things, and he looks all right, too. It's more like classic uniforms with red underwear again.
Yeah.
But the vibe I'm getting is he's almost creating a universe where it's not necessarily like trying to base it in reality. Like superheroes are a common thing. Like people with powers is just a thing. Like
Yeah.
it happens to a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah.
Like it's a huge cast of characters.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people in the movie. But that's what I'm saying. Like it looks like it's in a comic book as opposed to like trying to base it in reality.
There was a comic in the 90s called Justice League International, and it looks like they're doing that with this Superman movie. They're pulling some elements in there with Guy Gardner, and they got Maxwell Lord, who's like this billionaire that's kind of funds them. Well,
Yeah.
he's who Pedro Pascal played in Wonder Woman 84. That's that character.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Did not see that,
Yeah.
but
So James Gunn's
so-
brother,
Yeah.
Sean, who's in all of his
I don't
movies.
think I saw the first one.
Sean Gunn. Yeah, 'cause
he
always
plays like
in
three
all the
different characters now.
he's in all the Guardians.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like in this new DCU, he's playing Maxwell Lord, he's playing Weasel, he's playing
like,
GI Robot.
The cool thing about that is James Gunn has him do like a lot of the motion capture stuff too.
Yes.
Like he did a lot of the motion capture stuff for like Rocket
yeah,
Raccoon.
he was Rocket on
so like
set.
he basically does whatever James Gunn needs him to do.
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
Interesting.
But I assumed he would be in Superman in some capacity.
Yeah. And they got Nicholas Hoult playing Lex Luthor, and I think that's
He
gonna
looks
be-
good. The
yeah,
trailer
yeah.
looked good.
And then
I know I've
Lois
seen this,
Lane
but now I
is-
can't picture anybody.
You should look up the trailer for it. Like it's a totally different vibe than like
I've
MCU
seen it,
and
but
what
I
the
just-
DCU's been trying to do. What else was there? I know there was something else. I don't like I don't like what they did to my guy Henry though. I love Man of Steel.
What they do?
They just like fucking moved on with
Because
it.
they
well,
put him in
yeah.
the post-credit scene for Black Adam.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think The Rock was a big fan of him, and he was
Yeah.
wanting to bring him back into it, and they
Fucking
like
Rock.
promised, so Henry Cavill is going to be Superman still, and then
I really thought like,
what'd you say? You?
huh?
So I just said The Rock.
Oh, I thought you.
No.
Okay.
Like he tried to turn essentially a villain, at most an anti-hero, into a hero.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Black
it's-
Adam.
yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, like, he's going to be the focus of the DCU moving forward. And it's like, dude, this isn't that good.
I was so excited about. I was excited about Pierce
Black
Brosnan.
Adam until the movie. To
Yeah.
be honest with you.
I was excited about Pierce Brosnan being Dr. Fate.
Those scenes were sweet.
yeah.
And
I mean, like, the characters in the movie were cool, but it's just like, this isn't, like, you're trying to set everything up with one movie for this to be the focus of what moving forward. It's not really working.
Yeah.
so I'm glad that hopefully James Gunn has got this on the right track, and it's gonna be.
There's a cameo of fucking Henry Cavill in Deadpool and Wolverine. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
the
I didn't know-
Calverine.
The Cavalrine. And just that, I think Ryan Reynolds makes a comment. And it's like, we will treat you so much better
Right.
than those shit fucks down the street. 'Cause they did. They just kind of like fucking pulled the rug out from underneath of him.
Well, they like couldn't get their shit in one sock with it, and it kind of pissed me off because that first movie had some flaws, but overall, I felt like it was gonna go in the right direction, and then they just didn't do shit with it, and then
With,
threw him into Justice League.
Black Adam or what?
No, Superman.
Oh, I loved Man of Steel.
I thought
Man
it
of
was
Steel was
pretty good
great.
too. I mean, there's a couple little things that I understand why people were pissed off about, but overall, I was like, and not only that, to me, it looked
Their biggest
right.
villain was Warner Brothers because
Those bastards.
all the director's cuts, like the director's cut of Batman v Superman, and then
Yeah.
the Snyder cut of Justice League.
Are solid.
Yes, and you put those three as a trilogy.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it just drove me nuts that they never gave him another standalone
Yeah.
movie, and like they,
Yeah.
but it's like they didn't really map out a very good plan. It's like they felt
They
like they
didn't.
had to catch up with Marvel, and it's like you fucking don't. You have like you could literally let Marvel start to wane and then really just pick yourself up at the right time. But they were
But
like, no, we
reading-
gotta fucking. They're getting ready to do the fucking Avengers. We gotta fucking do Justice.
Here's the
League.
Justice League
And
with
it's like,
2 movies to
your
build it
Batman
up.
sucked. Like you need to fix fucking Batman before you even, and then give Superman get it to keep going. And
Reading what Zack Snyder's story for the whole thing was, that would have been pretty solid.
yeah,
But again,
They
the
didn't give enough
studio
time.
coming in and just
Yeah.
cutting here and
Studios-
here.
yeah.
Studio meddling, man. It kills stuff.
Yeah.
No, I liked his 4-hour version of Justice League. It adds much more context.
Oh, yeah.
Like a ton more context.
And you actually see what Darkseid was trying to do instead of where the theatrical cut was just Steppenwolf,
Yeah.
and where you realize no, Steppenwolf
Yeah.
is a minion of Darkseid.
My last thing with Henry Cavill, why I like him so much, is he's a legitimate nerd. Like he likes a lot of that
I guess
stuff.
yeah, he loved The Witcher, and that's why he's
And
Witcher.
he plays like Warhammer, which
Yeah,
is like
he's gonna be that.
like real hard nerd stuff. Like
Like,
he's
he's
an
wanting to
active
do a
gamer.
Warhammer movie.
It's a show on Amazon. I think they're trying to do.
Okay.
But like he plays those games, and like he's a guy that will like legitimately learn your like source material and try to be as faithful as possible to the character. I know a lot of people. Some of their complaints with him were like he wasn't a great Clark Kent, which we didn't see a ton of him as Clark Kent.
No,
But
Everybody's pissed off Lois Lane was redheaded. I was like, is that big a fucking deal?
who cares? But no, I liked him a lot as Superman. And I was telling Ethan, like, have you watched any of the Superman and Lois show?
I started watching that. Yeah, it was weird to me because it was like those actors, Tyler Hoechlin and
Yeah.
Elizabeth Tulloch, I think that's their names, were on like Supergirl and the Arrowverse crossover stuff.
So that's how I first saw him, and then I realized like HBO's got like 6 seasons of that show.
Yeah.
I'm working my way through them. It's a pretty solid show. It's kind of the same complaint I have with a lot of other stuff where he gets his ass kicked a lot. I'm like, it's fucking Superman. Like,
But they're portraying him as like he's a dad now and stuff.
yeah, he's got like 2 teenage sons, but
Yeah.
and I think some later season stuff. I've seen a lot of spoilers over the years, but like I think that is part of it. Like he's aging and he gets weaker, and that's kind of how they end it. But like, there's been no mention of that yet. He's just like little like middle of the road fucking villains kicking him ass and putting up fights against him, and of course he always finds a way to win.
Right.
But it's like, no, save that for like your end of season villain where like he struggles. He should be kicking the shit out of everybody else. Which is honestly, so I really like this new Daredevil show, and I'm going back and seeing it, and I've read a lot of like why that's praised so much. It's because he kicks the shit out of everybody else. Like, and that's kind of his thing in the comics is like no one is supposed to really compare to him in hand-to-hand combat. Like as far as like street level villains go and stuff.
Yeah.
And the dude's fucking blind.
Yeah, yeah. But the show does a great job of kind of making that all seem like his senses are just heightened. Like he
Yeah.
can listen to. He's a lawyer, so like he purposely like asks people questions to get their answers, and like he'll listen to their heartbeat to tell if they're lying.
Yeah.
And like it's pretty cool shit. But all the fights I've seen so far, yeah, like they're not really that close. Like, the first episode of Born Again it kicks off right away, and there's a fight with Bullseye.
Yeah.
And like the great thing about that scene is like up close, it's not even close. Like it's Daredevil. But far away, like it's not even close. Fucking Bullseye destroying him. So like there's very clear.
It's like there's the fight where they're in the diner or whatever it was, and just that one shot where it just shows the whole thing, and you see
And that's
the light
another
coming
sweet
in
thing,
from
too.
inside, or out-
So what got me into like looking up all this Daredevil content was in this show in like the second or third episode they did with the Netflix run. There's a hallway fight scene
Yes.
that's all one take. It's probably not one take because they do some interesting like slide shots where it blacks out in his silhouette. So they may use cuts there, but it's meant to look like all one fucking take. And there's legitimately probably 2 or 3 minute shots that are consistent. So I'm sure that takes a lot of work too. But they did it again in the first episode where it's that whole fight, for the most part, plays out kind of one shot. But it's just that thing where like up close and in hand to hand, like you see like why he's superior to most people, but also like why these villains are. Like a guy whose name's Bullseye should be really fucking good at throwing stuff.
Right.
And he is. Like that's where he kind of like takes over in the fights, but up close, like same thing with like Batman. Batman should always win those fights. Unless it's like a top tier villain and it's your climax of your story, shouldn't be fucking close to me. Like your heroes should be heroes and should be badass.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my complaint. That is my biggest complaint with Superman and Lois. Like other than that, it's a solid story.
I mean, I like seeing the stories where the heroes just learning the ropes, learning the ways, like how they do with Spider-Man, where they show him a lot
Or
where
like
he's
Smallville.
a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's kind of learning to become a hero, and he's learning
Right.
how to fight and how to handle their powers.
Yeah, I like those origin stories for sure, but it's just if they're already in this Superman's supposed to have been at it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like nobody should be giving this dude problems
Not
unless
unless Solomon
it's like
Grundy comes out pissed off, right?
Born on a Monday.
there
Did
is.
they ever do Solomon Grundy in a movie?
I've never seen
They
that. This show
had
does.
him, I believe, on Arrow, and they had him on Gotham.
Okay.
This Superman and Lois show does a version of Darkseid, I think. I've seen some clips and it's pretty clunky.
I am trying so hard to remember what fucking video game it is, but one of the video games did a badass.
It's
version.
Batman.
I mean,
The
it
Solomon
was in
Grundy?
Batman?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
Arkham, it's Arkham City.
Wait, are
yes.
you thinking of not Darkseid, but Doomsday?
Doomsday. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
they
Yeah,
did Doomsday
Doomsday.
on
Yeah.
Superman.
Okay.
was,
Okay.
yeah.
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 I just one thing like okay, so here the only thing I could really add. I feel like Superman they never do great on like some of the really good villains either. Like Solomon Grundy,
Yeah.
never been in a movie.
I think it was also on Stargirl. If you ever,
Solomon Grundy?
yeah,
He's in a bunch of shit. Like DC like just seems to kind of throw if you really follow it, they just kind of throw their villains into everybody.
don't
at some
fucking
point or
watch
another.
Legends of Tomorrow. That's all.
Is that out of control?
Yeah, and then they start later seasons. Just they're like, fuck it, we're just gonna create our own characters.
Yeah, there's like Brainiac. I'm trying to think of some of the really good. So anyway, I don't want to go. The path I'm trying to go down is like my favorite Superman. Period, hands down of anything I've done. Superman is probably the '90s animated series.
Oh,
It's so good.
that whole everything that Bruce Timm did in the
Yeah.
'90s.
But that I've watched a lot of versions of Superman, and most of the time, or even read some, and just kind of be like, eh. I mean, I get it. It's Superman.
I loved
Like,
Lobo on there, which again was Brad Garrett playing him.
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to think of some of but I thought that series did Superman the most interesting justice. Got all the villains like.
I liked the first couple episodes of that Superman cartoon where it showed the whole origin on Krypton and with Jor-El
Yeah.
kind of preparing and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
And showing that Brainiac was a presence there on Krypton.
Yep. Yeah, it bums me out. I can't remember all the villains that they did in that show, but like they killed it. I felt like Bizarro. I don't think Bizarro's ever been in much of anything.
He's
No,
they
he
do a
was-
Bizarro in the Sabrina Lois show. It's
They do.
Do they? Oh yeah.
It's a respectable take on it.
Is it?
Like it's
Yeah.
pretty solid.
Yeah.
Just like they do the whole backwards world. Like just thinks that's the Bizarro. Like everything's fucking backwards.
Uh-huh.
Their language is just reversed from us. Like,
yeah.
it's a pretty good take.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Superman's never been my favorite, but like that show I really enjoyed watching it.
I've always liked some Superman content.
So yeah, I'm pretty excited about the new James Gunn Superman.
I think like I liked all three of the Guardians movies,
yeah, exactly.
so I think
I
he'll
can't
do a
believe it
good
was allowed
job.
to go back and forth like that.
He's done with Guardians.
Yeah.
I don't care. Marvel's just be like, no, you're not making any other.
Well,
Well,
they
yeah,
don't have
that
directors
was-
under contract. You fucking idiot.
Well, yeah. Well, they fired James Gunn.
And then brought him back.
Yeah, they're like, well, we can't get anybody else to do number 3, or we can't get him
And
to
the
do
whole
such
staff-
as a good job.
Whole staff's or cast
Yeah,
spoke out for him.
Like Dave Bautista's like, I'm not coming back unless you bring him back, and
Yeah.
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 I mean, this is an hour and a half.
Yeah,
We
pretty
really
much
killed
covers.
it. So now we
That's a
just
good
gotta
one.
make sure we do
the
this.
Pizza
like,
Hut one was 2 hours,
Was it 2 hours?
just about.
I didn't think that was that long. No, like we probably should try. Like I don't know how hard it is with you guys, with your schedule and Tim and Alan both, but I would like to try to do this like once a month or every 6 weeks.
I'd be
and,
down.
We can get
Yeah,
this-
for sure.
Well, I've already had the thought while we were talking. We're just gonna have like nerd stuff podcasts, and I'll just give people the best description I can of what all.
Well, that's
we
pretty
talk
much
about.
yeah. That's pretty much what I do. Like
Yeah.
I never read comic books like a lot as a kid. I
read
watched a
them.
lot of the shows, but a bunch of the stories didn't stick with me. I just kind of remember like what I watched.
Mm-hmm.
But like since the MCU's really started, and even more so now that like I've got a kid, like we'll watch a lot of that, and I'll try to get like context on characters I know are going to be in it. So I'll go back and kind of read that stuff. So it's like I'm learning about those stories as I go.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
Shameless plug here, though. But
Mhm.
so I've got 4 books that I published.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of like what I've put into those books is like just inspiration of what I've known and what I've, like right now I'm kind of really focusing on the multiverse kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know particularly where I was going with that besides the shameless plug. But, here we
But you
are.
have what are the names of them?
yeah, you got to say the names now.
Yeah,
You're-
okay,
you're
so
already
the-
in.
And where can people find them?
Amazon,
Okay.
Okay.
or they can hit me up on Facebook.
Okay.
I've got a page. My page Through the Lion's Den
Okay.
is what I publish all my books under.
Yep.
First book is called Hostage 100,
Okay.
and then then I have a book called Full Steam Ahead. It's not part of the same universe,
Okay.
but it's part of the. I have a friend who he writes some books, and it's part of his universe. But then there's Sasquatch and the Scorpion, so this is part of the Hostage 100 universe.
Yeah.
And then there's Apprentice of the Hero.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, you can find them on Amazon.
Okay. Cool. That I did not know that. I
You didn't
remember
know
the
that?
Lion's Den stuff.
Yeah, it's a,
I definitely remember you used to carry stuff around and write. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I most definitely remember
like
all
some
that.
I was when we were working at Pizza Hut, I was working on some of those stories.
Uh-huh, yeah.
And I remember telling you and
Well, you had
some
the
others about 'em.
like on the break table, like it was. I'm not gonna describe it accurately. I remember it like being like this giant Bible, like thing, and it was like not quite a binder, but it like you had a bunch of shit in there that was really important to you.
Yeah.
dude, right. And I know you were always like, make sure nothing gets on that. Watch out what you're doing there.
yeah.
Yeah, but
I guess I got one more question before we
Okay,
kind of
one
wrap
more
it up.
question.
So, do you think the MCU can kind of get back to their peak of sort of building up the suspense of a story arc like they did with Infinity War and Endgame? Do you think they can create that again?
I think they can with Doomsday and Secret Wars, I think they can maybe not pull off as well as they did with Endgame and Infinity War, but I think they'll successfully wrap it. I've even heard they're trying to pull in doing some animation, like pulling from the animated shows and doing like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit kind of thing. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But I believe if they just wrap that, And then I think once they actually get onto the X-Men, I think they can start over and do.
That's kind of my thoughts on it.
Who's they gonna get to do Wolverine?
Well,
The Cavalry, my
They're
guy.
so fucked.
like they say in Wolverine and
They're so
Deadpool,
fucked.
they're like, we're gonna have you play him till you're 90.
Till you're 90. Yeah.
Which I guess they're gonna keep having Hugh Jackman play some stuff, but hopefully
they can find somebody.
I want Daniel Radcliffe to play him.
Harry Potter?
Well, Wolverine is supposed to be little.
Yeah, but he's like.
I mean, they
He's
did
like-
the joke of him
Yeah,
being
but he's
comic accurate in Wolverine and Deadpool, but I think they can actually
I know, but he's
get
like.
somebody small like that.
I don't think they should, if they recast, I don't think they should try to make another Hugh Jackman. Like, they should
No.
do a fresh take, like a different.
Well, if they did the smaller, because
Yeah.
he's 5'3" in the comics, but Hugh Jackman's 6'3".
Mm-hmm.
So if they get somebody shorter,
Yeah,
like
they'd have to
Daniel
take a
Radcliffe.
different.
Isn't he still like he's still built like a brick shit house in the comics?
Yeah,
isn't
well,
he?
yeah, because that's the I think
He's
point
built
of
like
a Wolverine.
Wolverine,
Because
yeah.
a Wolverine is small, but they're
Yeah.
ferocious.
Well, they're the same way. They're fucking stacked from
Yeah.
here up, and then they got little bitty ass.
Yeah, I just
ends.
don't think they should try to replicate like Hugh's portrayal
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
it.
I think Scott Eastwood would be a good idea too, because they based Wolverine off of Clint Eastwood.
Mhm,
So next best, I mean, if you can't have Clint Eastwood because he's
Yeah.
old and
I
frail,
think there's
next
definitely
best
some
thing.
good options.
Yeah,
Well, Scott probably would do a good job.
yeah,
Yeah.
Everything he's in is pretty
I-
decent.
I think they can get back to that, but it's like pre-Infinity War and Endgame. Like each movie did something pretty significant to push the story, especially really leading up to really the first two Avengers movies. Like Thor: The Dark World gets shit on a lot, but that introduced you to like the Reality Stone
yeah.
and the Ether. They've got to get back to that where if you're wanting to build this whole universe, take your time and make each movie do something to further the plot. Whether it turns out to be like your best movie, like I said, Thor 2 gets shit on a lot,
Yeah.
but it did push that story.
And that was one great thing about Endgame was because, and then since they did time travel, they visited those other movies and they're like, this is
Yeah.
how this ties in.
I just feel like with this multiverse saga, they're not really doing anything to push each story further into that.
Just
arc.
giving you a bunch of different stories.
It's just a bunch of different
Yeah.
fucking movies.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man: No Way Home, great movie. It didn't really do anything to push that overarching story further. Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness didn't really do that either. They both kind of dabbled in multiverse, but
Yeah.
it's like
And when I first
They didn't
started
do
hearing
anything.
about things for Multiverse of Madness, I was, getting this hyped up in my brain, like, oh, we're going to visit all these universes where we're going to... And they kind of did a scene where, Patrick Stewart came back as Professor X, and they had John Krasinski being that fan cast of
Yeah.
Reed Richards.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, that was a neat scene there.
but it amounted to nothing because
Exactly.
she killed him off in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, which I guess was trying
like
to
she
show
did
you
it,
that
just-
she was powerful as fuck.
Yeah, but how dare you bring back Sir Patrick Stewart and give him like 2 minutes of airtime in your movie?
I really wanted him to say, hey,
It's probably all the longer.
I
he
know
wanted
your
to be in
father.
it.
It's probably all they can afford, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this for very long.
But that's, I mean, I
probably
think
like Harrison Ford and fucking
I
Star
think
Wars
with,
episode whatever.
yeah, it was like, just kill me off.
Yeah.
with Russo brothers doing these last two Avengers or these two newer Avengers movies, I think they'll find a good way to salvage this. But even now, like, what's the fucking storyline going into Secret Wars?
Especially since they've had to
It's a
get rid of
secret.
Kang. They've had to get rid of Jonathan Majors.
So they've essentially wasted
yeah,
Ant-Man 3.
because they were building this up and they were doing like on the Loki show.
Yeah, the Council of the
building him up
Kangs.
and- yeah,
But yeah, it's so like that's kind of the thing. We knew what was leading up to Infinity War. Oh,
Yeah.
there's this fucking character Thanos who wants all these stones. Like we don't know unless you're familiar with the comics. You
Well,
know
and
probably.
they had a stone in each movie there for a while.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like each
randomly
movie,
kind of came up.
each movie kind of pushed it forward. Like Thor 2 had the Reality Stone. Like Guardians of the Galaxy had the Power Stone. Like they all had a integral piece of the story. But like I don't know what story is happening right now. What's the overarching story and what we're leading up to?
Yeah,
Did
it's
Iron
just they're
Man
trying
3
to-
introduced the first one? Which one? What movie actually had the first stone?
The Avengers.
Was it the
First Avengers because it was the Tesseract and Loki's.
well, but the
Spear.
Tesseract was in the first Captain America.
so technically, yeah.
'cause it was the cosmic
Captain
cube that
America.
Red Skull was
Yeah,
after.
Okay.
I'm
But
trying to
then-
think. Was there anything before that? Because
I don't think so. I think
the Avengers had, because Loki had it in his scepter.
Yeah, so the Tesseract and the Scepter are both in Avengers.
Yes.
But you're right, Captain America would have been the first one because it was inside it was a space stone inside the Tesseract.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Like the first Captain America with
Yeah.
like Red Skull and all
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
because yeah,
trying
that's
to
what like
think if
powers a
there
lot
was
of their
anything
tech. I
before
think a
that.
lot of the Hydra tech it's powered by the Tesseract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think they can get back to it. And like I said, the Russos will probably find a good way to salvage what they're doing here, but they need to have a clear plan and stick to it.
Yeah.
That's what I think. It's
Which I'm sure they will. They will try to.
they've seen how things have
salvage
kind of
parts here and
gone.
there.
I've heard like a lot of rumors, and it's all rumors, of course, but like a direction they are considering taking is like more street level stuff, like Daredevil, having Spider-Man get back to being like a street level character instead of
Yeah.
being a part of like all these cosmic events.
Yeah.
'Cause, like-
have
Or-
it just like a true Spider-Man movie that is closer to like the Tobey Maguire ones. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like in the '90s cartoon, his big overarching villain was Kingpin.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Kingpin is Daredevil's
And you've
villain,
got
Yeah.
and Hawkeye's
See,
villain.
and like with Charlie Cox being in the Spider-Man movie for a quick cameo, Kingpin's a huge part of his shows, and
Yes.
Vincent D'Onofrio does a huge. He's a huge part of that. He is Kingpin, obviously.
Yeah.
He's great at it. You could absolutely bring Spider-Man into that vibe.
Mhm.
You definitely could, and I'd love to see that because there's all those characters like you have like is it like Black Cat? You have Miles Morales, obviously.
Yeah.
Like you've got all those characters you could bring into those movies, and
Oh, Rhino. Did they ever do Rhino?
and he's in the Kraven the Hunter movie.
Yeah,
which-
he's in that,
That's right.
and then he was in Amazing Spider-Man 2 with
As-
Andrew
he
Yeah,
was-
with
Garfield.
was in-
Garfield, right?
Yeah, Paul Giamatti. I mean, I think he's a great choice for Rhino,
Yeah.
but they had him like
The
in a
Rhino
white
suit,
which
it
was
was-
Well, because
interesting.
I don't know. Those movies did The Vulture, and
Tom Holland.
Yeah.
was there a second?
No, the Tom Holland movies did the Vulture.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it
Michael
was?
Keaton was the Vulture.
They were leading.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they were
okay,
leading
that was
up to
Tom
the
Holland.
Sinister Six.
Yeah.
Okay, so who was the villain in Garfield's first one?
It
The
was
Lizard.
Lizard, yeah.
Lizard, yes.
Because then they brought him back. Reese Darby's brought
Yeah.
him back in
Yes,
No
because
Way Home.
originally that was supposed to just be Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire, and
Yeah.
the Lizard was always planned for that.
Yeah, but then they kept fucking Sam Raimi around with that because
Yep.
they're like, oh, but we want to do the Vulture. So they had John Malkovich, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, wait a minute, he's a little old, so we're not going to sell toys that way. And they're like, well, let's bring Anne Hathaway as his daughter, but she's Felicia Hardy, who's supposed to be Black Cat. And
Right. Yeah.
And then I think there was that point where they were going to, like, you know how Bruce Campbell was in a cameo in all of them because of his history with Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
And so they were going to be like, well, he's going to become Mysterio.
Oh yeah.
And they had like concept art of him.
Mysterio's the second one. with-
I do have a soft spot for those Sam Raimi movies, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, like
And he did
the
Multiverse of
first
Madness.
Spider-Man. I for some reason Simon or somebody wanted to watch him again at some point, and that first Spider-Man, like I had forgotten, it had been so long, but I had forgotten how very comic book like it actually is. Like they did
Yeah.
a really killer job of making it like real, but also very comic booky.
Yeah.
And you kind of forget until you watch it.
You know
all
the
again.
whole scene where like he catches all the food back on the
Yeah.
lunch tray.
Yeah, he
I heard
really did that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard that Tobey Maguire
Well,
actually practiced that and stuff.
And like I like the there's a point where something's coming.
I know exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about. They're in a coffee shop,
Yeah.
and it's Doc Ock
It's
coming
Doc
out
Ock. Oh,
because
yeah.
he's lost his powers because
Yep.
he didn't want to be Spider-Man
Yep.
anymore.
And then they do like
and
a
the
really,
frame like shakes each time. Yeah,
yeah,
it's very
but they
that's
do
Raimi.
a kick-ass job of like just like in a comic where like like they take the cell and they split it into different like boom 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 like
Oh,
they
yeah.
used to do that shit with the
Uh,
camera in those.
yes.
Eric Bana's Hulk movie does that a lot.
That's
But,
right.
yeah.
That's
And
right.
that is very comic booky.
Yeah,
I
and it
love
gives
that.
you a feeling that you're like actually watching a comic book a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
So outside of like the MCU, like Civil War is probably my favorite movie. Spider-Man 2 is up
It's
there with
really
my
good.
favorite Marvel
Alf-
movies.
It's
Alfred
way better than
Molina
I
as
remembered
Doc
it.
Ock. That's
Yeah.
probably my favorite Spider-Man live action villain. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad
He's
that
so good. That
they have
that
him
whole
that way
movie
over.
is so good.
It is.
I love
Who's
how the
other-
whole stuff they have him
It's
with.
not just him that's the villain in it though either, right?
It's totally him.
For some reason I thought
that
they had
one?
another one in that one.
Harry is like pissed off
Harry's
at him the whole
mad
movie.
at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
but
kind
he's
of
not
starts
really
being
the villain yet.
Hobgoblin, but not really.
He
yeah.
finds
then he becomes him in Spider-Man
He
3.
at the
because he
beginning.
finds
New
Norman's.
Goblin.
He
That's
finds
right.
Norman's vault at like the end of the second.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, he's
right.
pissed off at Peter the whole movie.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
No,
No,
that's-
those first two are really good. And I mean, I know why people fucking hate 3, and they did try to put too much into one movie in 3, but I don't hate 3 as much as
I don't either. I think they worked with what they had.
Yep.
And I mean, yeah, Topher Grace may not have been the best looking Eric Brock, but
Right.
as far as somebody who's like almost the exact copy of Peter Parker, and gets pissed because he takes everything from him, his job, his girlfriend,
Yes.
and everything.
Yeah.
Topher Grace is a great actor.
He did
Oh,
a great
yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just different than what the dumb jockey, I understand why people are pissed about the way they decided to portray him.
Yeah.
But Topher Grace did a fantastic job of what they were trying to do in the movie, which is just make him anti-Peter, like you were
Yes.
saying. But like, Eddie Brock's kind of a big doofus musclehead,
Yeah.
And I understand why that pissed people off, but
Tom Hardy didn't do too bad of a job as him.
I haven't watched any of those. I'm sure he on the surface seems like a fantastic choice, obviously,
He's
but
a weird fucking dude. But
yeah.
there's a part where he's like, when he first
Bane.
gets the symbiote and he's like really hungry and stuff.
Yeah.
So he's just being really weird in the restaurant and he wants to eat the live lobster and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've
don't-
seen pieces of it. I haven't sit and watched them all.
Yeah. I don't understand why they tried to shove New Goblin, Sandman, and the symbiote stuff all in one movie. That was really weird. I don't
Yeah.
really
That
know
was
why
that
they
was
did
all
that.
studio meddling.
Yes.
Yep.
which sucks because like
But I thought everybody that did all those things did a good job.
Yes.
Like I can't think of the actor that plays Sandman.
Thomas
Yeah,
Hayden
yeah.
Church.
Hey, Church, yes.
Yep.
He fucking killed it.
Yes.
And like the story was there, you just don't get enough of it. It's
Right.
like, why did you?
Because, yeah, he had a great one where he was like in prison and then he was trying to do stuff for his daughter, have his daughter have a good life and stuff. And
Yep. Yeah, and I thought they did a pretty kick-ass job of, like, it all happens too fast, but like, he's mostly pissed off at Spider-Man because Spider-Man's the black Spider-Man whenever he's dealing with him, right? And
Yeah.
kind of being a complete piece of shit.
Emo spider.
Yeah, which that was so I understand why that pisses people off. I also understand why they chose to do it that way at that time period too, though, because it was popular. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's like, it's fucking gay. He's like a stupid emo guy. You know what I mean? I was like, well, yeah, but that's
He does a whole
that's
dance
what's-
routine.
It's like, yeah, but that's what's popular in culture right now. And like when you're making a movie, you're obviously gonna draw from that
Yeah.
stuff. Like
But I mean, that's what the symbiote does. It
Right.
pulls out the dark side of you.
Yeah. Yes. And that, I know it's not real dark, but that was dark
Yeah.
in 2007 or whatever when that came
Yeah.
out, like that was, yeah. But anyway, we got to wrap this thing up.
all right,
Yeah.
all right.
So
That was good talk
I got
for
to
sure.
tugboat us out of here, but this was great, and we will do this semi-frequently. I will work to make sure that we keep doing this, so I appreciate both of you big time.
Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.